Welcome back to the Compressor Guru. What weather we're having. Boy, it was hot last week, and I just got a call today that prompted this impromptu bonus special episode. And we happen to have the electric guru up from Florida because it's too hot down there for him. It was too hot up here for us last week. But the question today from a customer was about his machine shutting down. And I'll get to that, but we're going to ask Eric. Eric, with the 100-degree weather we were having last week, what was the damage or problems caused to the electrical systems on the compressors by this extreme heat?
Heat is a bad thing for your electrical components. Things like your motor. The motor has temperature ratings on it, ambient temperature ratings, and it's designed to run within those temperatures. When your compressor is in a situation where you have a high ambient and you have it in an enclosed atmosphere where it has little or no airflow, then it generates a lot more heat. So that 100-degree ambient could have been 140 degrees in your little compressor space. So consequently, that heat causes issues with your terminations, where your wires are connected, especially if they're dissimilar wires like copper and aluminum. They'll move because of expansion and contraction. Your thermal elements, your overload, if you will. Your overload really, has
overload. That's what happens when I get in a truck, right?
Well, usually. But in this case, it's a different overload. It's the overload that keeps your motor from burning up when it runs too hot. So that overload tries to simulate what the motor feels like. And it will actually trip more frequently in a higher ambient than in a low, cooler ambient. I mean, if you're in 40-degree weather, your electrical system pretty much doesn't care. But heat is really, really difficult on your electrical components because they generate heat naturally.
Now, with that explanation, let me tell you what happened last week. Last week I don't think we had a day under 90 degrees, and very often it felt more like 100. And I got a call from a customer today after the problem quit. He says, hey, last week we had to keep pushing the reset on our compressor, and it's a little screw, and they got it mounted up in the mezzanine right up next to the warm ceiling, and he's like, it kept shutting down on us. And I'm like, okay. I says, my electric guy is in town. Do you think I need to send him up? And he's like, well, it's not doing it now. Why didn't you call me last week? Anyway, so after I was talking to him, the heat seemed to be a direct causal relationship to his problem. And I said, okay, so where's the machine at? Well, we got it upstairs. It's in a mezzanine. And I says, oh, where you can't hardly get to it or work on it. He says, no, we have room to walk around it. Well, walking around it is a good thing because that no matter how big or small the machine is, they got little fans to take care of them, and you don't want to mount them up next to the wall. But he did have it up next to the ceiling. So his breaker problem was, I'm going to say 95% caused by the hot weather last week. And since it's still June and we got 3 more months of real hot weather, I thought it was important we get this video out. So, is there any other factors, Eric, that can give us issues during the hot weather?
Absolutely. The hot weather, well, let's just talk about your motor. How's that? That's our most common problem that has issues with the heat. But that motor has insulation in those electric wires in the windings. And again, they have temperature ratings. But as those temperature ratings get exceeded, you may or may not trip that thermal, but you're always putting extra stress on that insulation. And eventually that insulation is going to break down if you continually keep this thing in that hot environment. You have to find a way to get rid of the heat. The other thing that affects the electrical system is everybody around you. I mean, when you're running in the middle of summer, you're running your air compressor and it's hot. Well, it's hot in everybody's house. So what are they doing? Running their air conditioners. Anything to make their comfort better. And that extra load on the electrical system, the electrical grid, if you will, it drops the voltage. As the voltage drops, the current needs to increase to do the same amount of work.
So it raises the amperage.
It raises the amperage. Yep, and so now you're drawing more amps to do the same work that you were doing before, simply because the voltage dropped because of everybody else around you. And a 10 or 15 volt drop is probably not uncommon for a lot of you guys out there when you look at the area around you. If you measure that voltage in the middle of winter on a nice day, and then you measure that same voltage in the middle of summer on a nice hot day, especially a 100-degree day, you're going to see a significant difference in that voltage. And again, that it's causing the motor to work harder to do the same amount of work by putting more current through it. So your potential for motor failures is greater. Even your other components, when you're raising the amps on them, they're rated for higher amperage than what you're putting through them as a rule, but you're still causing higher amps to flow through your contacts, through your starter or through your pressure switch. And a little bit of arcing occurs, and then you have bad contact, and then a little more bad contact, and the next thing you know, you burn out your switch or you burn out your contacts. So heat's bad. If there's a way to keep the heat off of the machine or lessen the heat that's on the machine, it'd be a great thing. So, that's kind of a nutshell version of the electrical side. But, Guru, how does it affect the compressor side?
Well, the compressor will run hotter, of course, which compressors run hot to begin with. Friends, in the past, how many times have I told you, heat and dirt are the enemy of your air compressor? And we're trying to find ways to keep you from being in that trouble. So, if you're running a 20 weight oil in your compressor because it never gets over 80 and then we get blasted with this heat wave, you might want to consider putting a 30 or 40 weight oil in that machine till fall. That's a unusual thing to have to do, but it might be necessary. We do sell AMSOIL compressor oil, or you can get it at your local AMSOIL dealer, and you make sure you get the compressor oil. But that's just one thing. The other thing that you can really help yourself with is take your air gun and blow the coils off, blow the dust off the cylinders, blow the dust off the heads, get the machine clean so that the airflow that is going across it has a chance to make it cooler.
Yeah, we've seen some pretty bad machines that way, that nobody, especially if you're in like a wood shop or any place like that, you get all kinds of stuff on there, just overheat your compressor.
That's right. The camera wife goes with me even on service calls. So she knows. So, speaking of airflow, one thing you can do, get a window fan. Get one of these little oscillating fans and put it on your compressor or put it on your motor. Now, your compressor blows air across the pump from the flywheel side. It blows the air across the pump. Don't put your fan here and kill the air that's going across it. Put your fan on the flywheel side, blowing across the compressor. You can put a fan on the motor. Now, motors have a built-in fan, right?
Yes, they do.
But in this kind of weather that we experienced, we need to give it all the help we can get. So we've let you know that these problems do happen. We've let you, and the problems aren't just on the compressor side; they can be on the electric side. These are some precautions you can take during a heat wave. Anything to add, Eric?
Well, I guess when you're putting your compressor in, there's certain things to consider, and one of them is how much space is around that compressor and what's the airflow look like in this area. It's okay to put your air compressor in the mezzanine, but you got to have room to walk around it, and you got to have some way to dissipate the heat, some way to get it out of that area.
And you got to have room to stand up.
Yeah, you got to have room to
Eric
stand
and I
up.
are going back to a job where he can't even, he's much shorter than I am. I'm actually slouching. He can't even stand up to work on the compressor, and I won't go up in that hole where they have the machine mounted. There's no airflow. It is far enough out from the wall, but there's no airflow. And they've mounted in just a pretty lousy place because it's not on the floor. Back to your thought.
Yeah, well, and again, cut a vent in up there, set a place where you can put a fan to dissipate the heat, get it outside. Or in the wintertime, be able to shut it off and throw that heat back down into your shop. That you can use that energy in the wintertime to help heat. But, it's again, consideration of where you mount that compressor, where you put that piece of equipment, can help you both on your energy costs and on your reliability. And so I think that's about it right now.
Folks, this is an emergency hot weather episode brought to you by the National Weather Service. No! This is brought to you by the Compressor Guru. Guys, these are some things that may be causing you hot weather trouble. So, like, subscribe. If you have a friend that's having problems like this today, share this episode to him. God bless. Thank you, Eric, for being in here. The Electric Guru. He'll be up here. He's a snowbird. He'll be up here till September. And we're taking extra electric jobs for just so he has spending money. Oh, he has spending money. Thank you. God bless. Stay cool.